Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. What I want to talk about today is why property rights matter. There are strains of libertarians who sometimes lose sight of this, and there's people who are progressives and conservatives who definitely lose sight of this, that property rights matter, and that's why they're very core to libertarian views, because it all stems now how you get the private property all stems from the fact that you own yourself. So basically, if I find some unused thing in the woods, a tree that fell down, and I use it to make a chair, that chair is mine. I mixed my labor with it, and it's mine. No one can say they had a prior claim to it. Logically, I mean, who would be able to say they have a prior claim to it, since I was the first person to touch that unclaimed thing? And I own myself, I own the fruits of my labor, I own the fact that I put work into that chair, so it's mine. Now, your labor is a thing that you can sell. So when you go to work, you are agreeing to sell your labor. So while you still have ownership of the fruits of your labor, that's why you're able to ask for a wage. So when you go to work and you get paid a wage, you're saying, hey, I'm going to give you some of my labor and you're going to get something out of it, and you're paying me up front for it. So when the entrepreneur goes and sells that product for a profit, you have no claim over that. Your wage was you selling your labor. You've already sold it. You don't get to sell it again unless you make that arrangement, unless you create some sort of profit-sharing arrangement with the person who you're selling your labor to. But once you set a price and you've agreed to a price for your labor, that's the arrangement. Same thing with rent. Someone has property, someone owns a building, and you want to make use of it, and they say, hey, you got to pay me so much rent to use the land. That's an agreement that you guys agreed upon, and if you can't pay the rent, it's not their obligation to deal with the cost of paying for the electricity, for the heating and whatnot, when you can't pay the rent, okay? And thus foregoing the ability to cover those costs with somebody else who can pay the rent, okay? It's their property. You agree to something. Just because you can no longer meet your end of the bargain doesn't necessarily mean the other person's now a bad guy. Okay, so that's what I want to get at, but let's talk about this a little bit deeper. Property rights also matter because it's an incentive thing, okay? Let's imagine, have you ever been roommates with someone? Okay, there's your room, their room, and then you have like common space. Sometimes what happens, actually it's probably more apropos if you think of it when you were kids, if you shared a room with like a sibling. The room can sometimes get messy because you always assume somebody else is going to clean it up, okay? You see this a lot with sort of public lands or waters where people fish. No one's worried about how many fish there are because the other fish aren't mine. The only fish that are mine are the ones I catch, so I might as well catch as many as possible. So in that case, since there's no one that owns it, there's no one that has an interest in maintaining it. And that goes for anything, okay? So the fact that you don't directly own X property, anything that's sort of public property, since you individually don't own it, you don't find that, you may feel like certain things need to be done to maintain it. You're like, yeah, man, we need to fix those roads. We need to improve that school. But you're not taking action to do it because you think it's somebody else's responsibility to do it. That's the problem when things are sort of collectively owned, okay? When it's your apartment and it's a mess and you think, man, this apartment needs to be cleaned, well, that's your job. And you realize it's your job because it's your apartment. So then you clean your apartment. Some people don't, but in that case, they didn't think that was a problem, okay? So when you see a problem with property that's yours, you take action to fix it. You maintain that property. But on top of that, the fact that you can own property and charge for it gives you an incentive to get more property and create, and you're not just taking stuff that already is, you're making stuff. Think of a real estate developer. Now, there's people out there saying, well, you have claim over shit, you can, use your house is yours, but if you were to buy ownership of another housing unit and charge rent, that's theft. No, okay? If you bought that property from somebody else who owned it beforehand, voluntarily, it's yours. But the fact that you can charge rent makes me think, well, I have this property where there's a house that can only fit one family. Well, I could knock down the house, build an apartment complex, and house 10 families. and charge 10 families rent. So the fact that I can go charge more rent by building multi-unit housing made it where now I've created more units of housing out of the same land. Now, if I could only make use of the property that I live in and not charge rent for any other properties, well, in that case, I would just build a giant house for myself. It would be inefficient use of space than otherwise would have occurred. And on top of it, less families would have homes. You would have more homelessness. Okay? The fact that people can profit creates an incentive for there to be the things that people need: food, housing, etc. Okay, you may not like it that someone also benefits from the house that you rent, from the food that you bought, but the fact that they can means that food is there. The fact that they can means that apartment is there. And when you take that out of the equation, supply doesn't increase. There isn't going to be a reason to make another apartment complex, a reason to make additional food beyond the food that I need for myself. And then more people starve, more people are homeless. Profit is compassion, okay? Bottom line. Allowing there to be profit is compassion. Okay? Profit is generosity. Entrepreneurship is philanthropy. Because what you're doing is creating more. I've said this before, I've explained this before, and I'm explaining it again. Profit is generosity. Entrepreneurship is philanthropy, because through the seeking of profit, you're creating more. Now, does that mean anyone who sits there and has made a buck has created more? There are people who cheat. There are people who defraud. There are people who extort. But that's not the same thing as being a genuine entrepreneur seeking profit by creating value for others. Fraud is not allowed. Violence is not allowed. The initiation of force is not allowed. But you working with others and coming up with voluntary arrangements to exchange property, to charge prices, that is totally cool. And in the search for those profits, you will have created more. You will have created value for someone. You will have created that blogging platform that someone gets to express their opinion on. You would have created that froyo place that gave me a cold snack on a hot day. You will have created that fancy baby carriage that was safer than just your standard baby carriage, because you were in the search of profit. Profit is generosity. Entrepreneurship is philanthropy. I cannot say it enough. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. If you enjoyed this video, please like my Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, check out alexmerced.com and check out all the other things that I do: podcasts, videos, blogs, etc. And consider supporting my efforts by heading over to libertydeal.info, where you can find a lot of different ways to support the different projects that I'm in and just help cover some of the costs of doing all this stuff. Thank you very much. It's been great. And again, profit is generosity. Entrepreneurship is philanthropy. Have a great day.